Hello and welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. You're with your host Maria, and thanks so much for joining me today. It's really great to have your beautiful presence and wonderful ears tuning in. So thank you. I'm pretty much fully recovered from my whatever it was, my little health blip last week. What I ended up with though was a really sore throat in terms of it being really strained. My voice was strained. I lost my voice multiple times. Sometimes I'd wake up and I could barely speak. I was sort of whispering, and it felt really strange and uncomfortable because I'm well in every other aspect of myself. I have no other symptoms. And as a slight side, I'd love to know how you are all faring in terms of wellness right now. Obviously here in New Zealand it's winter, but I do believe it's more than just winter bugs, and it's been given labels of it's flu. Now we've got the full influenza name, or it's COVID, or it's a head cold, or and quite most likely, rightly, whatever. However, there are so many other layers and aspects going on right now on a more wider scale. And as we know, our sun is having so many solar flares right now, more than ever before in a concentrated period of time. So all of these things need to have an impact on all of the beings on the planet. And I do think there's, as our Mother Earth is going through her little recalibration and adapting to the changes that she's experiencing and feeling, then so too are we, all of us. Humans, animals, plants, minerals, all of us, everything. Anyway, that's just a little ponder, and I would love to know how you are, and if you're feeling like it's if your state of being and well-being is a little bit off right now. And yeah, let's have a conversation. Anyway, back to the voice. What it really made me ponder and reflect on is how much we rely on our senses. And we have more than 5, but if I'm talking about the 5, and if I'm talking about our voice, when we don't have that and we can't speak, so other senses come a bit more highly tuned, right? So on Monday, when I was back at work, but my voice was strained, and I was trying really hard to not overly use it, but not be alarming for my families that I'm working with. So I start the morning, and every morning I start with one of Rudolf Steiners' verses, and I always do the daily verse. So he has a verse for each day of the week. So Monday's verse is all about, it's called the right word, and it's talking about listening thoughtfully. It's about not speaking without reason, avoiding jumbled up conversations with lots of words and over talking one another, but they don't really make sense always. Allowing silence and being comfortable with this, and finding that balance of talking either too much or too little. And so that's the verse he brings for Monday, and it's an exercise in itself, that it's a contemplation, the right word. And I've been saying this verse for years, and it's always spoken to me, but this week even more so, because my voice wasn't fully there. So I had to really use the sense of listening more. And it made me think of, on a wider, in this little period of time, there is so much confusion right now and misinterpretation of what has been said, or different judgments. This is on, you can see this on a personal level in your own sort of wider, maybe your family, community, workplace, but also on a global level. There is a lot of confusion, and which brings unrest, uncertainty. And Mercury is in retrograde right now, and so it's a time to be absolutely more mindful of our communication. And because miscommunication is quite likely to occur. And so when we allow ourselves more of that space, that quiet, then that right word, as Rudolf Steiner would say, comes forth. And it's not speaking that word, that truth, but it's taking that pause first to truly know that this is the right thing to say. And I've been noticing this working with, I've had so many conversations this week. It's interesting because my intention was really to speak less, and to a point I have been, but on the other hand, I have had people coming in and requiring an ear, a listening ear, and some reassurance. And I think when you can be in that space, that in-between space, hopefully this is making sense, when you're holding the space for the in-between the words. Because I find over the years working with, many people in counselling, teaching, parenting, whatever it is those spaces between the words that we speak that have the potency. And sometimes it's the magic, but sometimes it's also the underlying energy of what the person's actually trying to say. And that could be for good or not so good. So it's those spaces in between are really important. And I've worked with simplicity parenting for a very, very, very long time now. I love Kim John Payne's work, and I've done his training in simplicity parenting, and that's a really big underpinning of the work that I do when I work with parents as well. But something he has and says is it true, is it kind, is it necessary? And I first heard that from him, and it really stuck with me. So is it what someone is saying, or what you are saying yourself, is it true? Is it kind? And then is it necessary? And it was actually Socrates that first said that, or as it's been recorded. And he said, let me get the quote right. If what you want to say is neither true, nor good or kind, nor useful or necessary, please don't say anything at all. Actually, thinking about that, I remember, growing up, and my mother would always say, if you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything at all. That was to us children, as we're three girls probably having our little tiffs along the way, but it's essentially the same thing, isn't it? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Which leads into Steiners' verse. It's the same thing. Speaking for the sake of speaking, because that's what many of us do. And you know what? A lot of the time it's just to fill the gaps, to fill the space, to fill the silence, because the silence is confronting. The silence can be scary. And the silence is when the thoughts come in. And that is what a lot of us struggle with. And when I work with clients, this is always I've got air quotes here, prescription for people, is practicing more stillness, more quiet, more being rather than doing. I even had a client the other week, and she's really trying hard with all of this, but she still has to fill the silence. So it has to be, rather than going out partying all the time, she's not doing that as much, but when she's home, she has to fill the space with music or a podcast or something, and especially before going to bed. And then she said, I just can't sleep. And when we pulled it back as to what she's doing beforehand, she said, well, I'm just listening to a podcast. But it's the type of podcast, it's very, her brain is very active and it's in learning mode. And it was too much. She couldn't sleep, so we pulled that right back. And now it's just a chamomile tea and being comfortable with being with oneself. So I just find it interesting that it's popping up. It's quite evident right now, quite likely because I've put a lot more focused concentration on it due to my voice being not online. So there has been even more listening on my part and noticing. But what I am noticing is that there isn't a lot of kindness out there at times. And a lot of the words, not just the spoken words, maybe the emailed words, text words, or however, the written word, that also isn't always kind and isn't always necessary. And especially when the writer or the speaker has the intent or the energy behind what they are trying to convey. Because that energy is what is felt from the reader or the listener, not the actual words themselves. It's that space in between. So if we can hold this and just be mindful of this, these spaces in between and the energy behind what we want to say or what we think we should say, and we all want to have our voice and be heard and have an opinion, and that's well and good. That's part of our sovereign right as a human being on this planet. But sometimes there are a lot of words, and sometimes they don't always make sense, and they can be received not in the way that we intended always. So, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? I think these are really beautiful words to consider and to hold in your awareness right now, and who knows, maybe journal about. And from the simplicity parenting point of view, it's what we say to our children in those times when we're triggered or feeling reactive, and what we are then saying to our children. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Because this is what is then modeled to them, and then they can embody that themselves and do, act in that same way. Yeah. So, and I'm just, I run a little play circle group 3 days, 3 mornings a week, where I have mums and children, little ones come in. And they're generally between, young babies and about 3 years old. And it's actually more for the mums to have connection and conversation and to feel held in a space where they're truly seen and witnessed. But anyway, these little children, we sit down every morning and have morning tea. And I make homemade buns. And these little toddlers, they sit around the table, and they all sit down, and I have a candle every time. I light the candle, and they're waiting in anticipation. And then the flame comes, and they're quiet, and their eyes are just watching, and I light that candle, and then we say a little blessing, a little karakia, and then I serve them their food. And in that moment of the lighting of the candle and saying our blessing, and then them eating those first few bites, it's quiet, because they're in this mood of stillness and reverence for what that candle brings in. It represents this respect, reverence, gratitude. They're in the space of appreciation, and I'm holding that within myself, and they feel it, and they know, and they too sit there in that space, and they eat their little bun, and they might have another one, and then after that, then the chit chat comes in, but there's a moment, more than a moment, where there's stillness. They do this so beautifully, and if a group of little toddlers can do this around the table, we adults can do this too. However, actually, in saying that, it's usually the mums sitting around behind the children that find this the most challenging, that quiet, that silence. Often they feel like they need to fill that gap because it's feeling a bit uncomfortable, perhaps for them. But the children are in this beautiful magic of the moment, and I'm there with them. And session by session, week by week, the parents come and join us in that magical place too. It's really beautiful. So I guess these are my musings, my reflections, but I feel like I want to share them because there's a lot going on right now for everybody. Nobody's unaffected. Everybody, every single one of us is traversing something along their journey right now, or they know someone very close to them that is. And yeah, we have to be in that space between the words, I guess, is my parting message, and just practice it. I know it's easier said than done, but when you can give yourself permission to do this and put more awareness onto it, it's magical. It truly is. So I wish you a most soul-filling day, soul-filling week ahead, and I would love to hear from you. And if you want to know more about how you can achieve this, or you need a bit more support in this, reach out to me, maria@parentingwithsoul.com. Ask me questions, share your musings as well. I think it's good to have that conversation as well too, in terms of support. And for this little community, our Soulful Mamas community, is to build that village, build that connection, and speaking that same beautiful, loving, energetic language. I appreciate you. I really don't take it for granted that you are here, giving your time, listening in. So thank you. And if you know of someone that you feel like would benefit from this, particularly this conversation today, please feel free to share it. So until next week, have a soul-filling day, everyone. Bye.